and welcome to this edition of the Ironstadt Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Baston. Joining me is three lovely ladies who have the distinction of being chef de missions for Bermuda in the upcoming major festivals. And we also have a male who will be joining us later on in the show. But first, we have for the CAC Games, which is the Central American and Caribbean Games, we have John Baird. The chef de mission for the Commonwealth Youth Games will be Ashley Yearwood, and the Pan American Games will be Julia Hawley. And for the Olympic Games in 2024, we have Couture Horton Parentief. First of all, good evening, ladies. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Earl. Thanks.
Hi, thanks, Earl.
Thank you.
Well, I would say this. This is not your first rodeos in international festivals. All of you have had leadership roles in one way or the other for the Bermuda Olympic Association, or as Couture, an Olympian. But actually, I'm going to start with you because you're right next to me. Your first experience as a chef, assistant chef, what were some of the things you learned about the position that now you take with you to this next one?
Yeah.
So my very first.
Not you, Couture. Ashley.
Thanks, Ash. I thought you said me. I'm to your whatever on the screen.
Ashley's next to me.
Ash.
Well,
This is going to be a hilarious night, trust me.
my first time I was an assistant chef with Julia. Julia was the main chef when we went down to Colombia to do the Junior Pan Am Games in 2021. I think some of the major takeaways, one of the things that I had last time that I'm not going to have this time is Julia to help. And so me and Julia worked really, really well as a team when we were doing all of the chef duties. So I think that one of the things I'm looking for is, instead of having another chef to do that teamwork with, is really working with the team managers and the NSGBs and creating that relationship so it's a smooth running operation. But it's definitely a leadership role like I have never experienced before. Yeah.
I mean, you've done a lot of leadership roles in the sport of swimming, but do you think you were prepared for what the encounters were in Colombia?
I don't think anyone could have been prepared for what the encounters were in Colombia. I think, we had so many meetings, and it's not like I went in there completely blind. Like, I had conversations with Couture, I've had conversations with Bronwyn. We had so many meetings. Definitely didn't go in there blind, but Colombia, I don't know if it was a different beast or if they're all just like that, but I was not prepared. No.
Sure. So, well, I'm gonna go down to Julia next, because Julia, you had the experience of having Ashley with you, but what would you say was your biggest takeaway that you will take into the Pan American Games? You know, although it was a youth event in Colombia, but now you're going into a senior event. Pretty much the regulation stuff are the same. It's just a matter of now you're dealing with more adults as opposed to young people.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow on from Ashley, I mean, the Cali, the junior games that we were the chefs for were very challenging. And I think just about everything possible was thrown at us during those games. So for me, I mean, it was my first time as a chef as well. So I think really, in a way, I mean, I look back on it and I think that was a great experience because I learned so much. And I think Ashley and I both learned an incredible amount in that environment. And I guess the big takeaway from that is, you know, no matter how what problems arise, you just have to stay calm. Communicate is probably the most important factor in being a chef, and you're communicating with everybody, not just your athletes, your team officials, but all of the games people. And of course, the language can be a challenge as well, but you can always there's always people that speak English and that you can get your point across. And I guess it's just that, again, it's just the communication and making sure that you always follow up on things as well. So don't just accept that, the bus is going to be here at such and such a day and time. You've got to make sure that it's actually going to be there at that time. And someone's there to make sure the athletes get on the bus and get to where they're going. And if the bus isn't there, then you've got to try and figure out a solution. So I think that games was awesome because it taught us that very quickly in a couple of weeks. So I think for me personally, in preparation for Pan Am Games, I feel very comfortable that, this is a senior games in Santiago, and I think, we'll be very prepared for that one.
Well, let me go to Couture, and congratulations on being, we believe, the first Olympian to be a chef for Bermuda at an Olympic Games. But I'm going to say 3 words to you, Couture, that's going to bring a big smile and then a frown on your face. Veracruz, Mexico.
No, I don't want to. I believe that's actually 2 words. Veracruz is the one, and Mexico is, I don't even want to, can we not? And you know what, the funny thing is, Earl, I'm listening to Julia and Ashley, and I will tell you, I think that the junior games are harder to coordinate than senior games because you're not dealing with adults. You're in charge of these minors who need curfews and they need their mom and all of these things where, it's just not the same beast as dealing with adults. And Julia will be able to attest to the fact that I had her baby at the Commonwealth Games, and she was an adult, but she was a baby adult, like a young adult. And it was like, you really have to have eyes on these kids. But the Colombian sort of animal that they had to deal with the language barriers and the logistics, I think is very, I would say there's a bit of a parallel between what Donna Raynor and I went through at the Veracruz Games. I think you're right.
Well, I'm going to tell you, at the Veracruz Games, Julia and Ashley, what you went through was nothing.
Really?
When I say nothing,
how is that
nothing
possible?
compared to what was going on.
I was trying to be gracious, Earl.
Tori's over here, just listening to us complain.
Oh my
Everything
goodness.
and anything that could go wrong went wrong.
Oh my
Starting
goodness.
from there was no village.
Oh geez.
Yeah. So we found hotels. It was freezing. We're running track in the freezing cold, and
the track meet and cycling was 3
they were in
hours
Jalapa,
Right.
which was
3
not
hours.
Veracruz.
Right. Mountain terrain, Jalapa,
Oh yeah.
where our poor cyclists, what they done, 1 lap, 2 laps?
Yeah, we had a couple DNFs.
Yeah.
A little bit of ambulance action. It was tough.
Yeah. And then on the track, it rained, it was cold, but we still had that 3-hour drive back to Veracruz. But the fact that you guys have had this experience, I honestly believe that our athletes are now in good hands. I think that the management of these athletes will feel comfortable in what you guys have experienced thus far, that if anything comes up, you've been through the storm, you've been through the rain, you've been through everything. But let me ask you, Couture, what excites you about the fact that you will leave Bermuda in Paris?
You know what? It's just such an honor. You know what I mean? Like it's surreal. I've not been back to the Olympics since I was there as an athlete. And in 2024, that'll be 20 years. So 2 decades since I was fortunate enough to compete with Bermuda across my chest and make a little bit of Olympic history. And it was such an honor then, and it's no less of an honor now. To be able to help athletes and just, I know that it's funny to hear you say that I'm the first Olympian to do that, when a lot of these countries, that's a prerequisite. Canada has had an Olympian chef their Olympic Games, both winter and summer, since 2008. These are prerequisites for people. So, having an Olympian lead the team, somebody who has at least a little bit of experience competing at the Olympic Games, I think it will be a fantastic opportunity for Bermuda, but also a fantastic opportunity for me. So I don't take this lightly. I know it's a big job. And I hope I do Bermuda proud, and I hope that the athletes get everything that they need out of the experience.
Well, we know how forceful you are. They'll get everything that they need.
Always, right?
Always.
Oh,
Always.
Julia, it's unique for you because you have a daughter that competes at the highest level in triathlon, but having the responsibility of overseeing all the athletes. How do you manage something like that? Because I mean, it must, because you'll feel the jitters in the morning of your daughter's race, and but you still gotta worry about, the half a dozen to a dozen other athletes that you will have to take care of on that day as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, until you just said it there, I hadn't really thought about the fact. I mean, Erica is, hopefully will be at Pan Am Games in Santiago. But I hadn't really given that much thought, to be honest, Earl. I mean, to me, I'm, along with Couture, I feel very honored to be a chef for the games, and I'm just excited. I just recall at the junior games how exciting it was to see all of the athletes on their day and achieve their goals for the day. And then we actually got a medal at that games as well, which was incredible. But all the other athletes had their own amazing days, and it's just so, I just love being part of that and being a part of that journey to help all athletes at the games, and making sure their experience is everything that they need. And then they get the best performance on the day for them. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Not a problem. Not a problem. And I'm going to ask Ashley a similar question, because Ashley, you have a hand in some of these youth Commonwealth Games swimmers. You have a hand in preparing them for these games, because that's your background. That's what you do. How do you plan to control those nerves, urges, and everything on swim day when you might have to race from swim to track or to, whatever else there is going on?
Yeah. This is going to sound maybe a little controversial, but one thing for myself, I never really got nervous on race day. And I have kind of projected that onto anyone that I'm coaching. Whenever the kids come up to me and they talk about how nervous they are, just remind them, you've put in everything that you could have put in up to this point. All you have to do now is get on the blocks and swim your race. You know how to do it. That's all you have to do. And that's kind of how I feel as a coach as well. If I've done my job to do everything that I can do for this kid to do the best that they can, there's no reason for me to be nervous for them. So hopefully that sticks for a big competition like this, because I mean, I can say that for a meet that they're doing at the Bassa Pool or at the National Stadium. But I'm definitely excited to see what some of the swimmers that I see in the pool, or seen come up through swimming from the level of teaching them when they were 3 to them being athletes competing for Bermuda. I think that it's definitely something that a lot of people don't get that opportunity. So hopefully I won't be nervous for them. So I don't know what I'm going to do if I am, though.
So, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take our first commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to join the interview I done with John Beard, who is the chef de mission for the CAC Games, Central American Games in El Salvador. I done earlier today. We'll be right back.
Putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
John Barrett & Son is bringing us something fresh and exciting for the new year. Bai Antioxidant Infusion Beverage. Bai delivers the natural antioxidant benefits of the coffee fruit in glorious combination with a variety of exotic fruit flavors, with only 1 gram of sugar and 10 calories per bottle. The folks at Bai are inviting us on a world tour through these amazing flavors. Brasilia blueberry, Zambia Bing cherry, Costa Rica clementine, Malawi mango, Panama peach, Ipanema pomegranate, Kupang strawberry kiwi, and more. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends. And that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
Elected as a chef de mission, not your first time around.
No. The last one, Earl, was in Colombia, and that was a few years ago. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to doing this one as well.
Sure. The anticipation of leading a Bermuda contingent at a major festival, for you, what has that experience been like, and what are you looking forward to this time around?
Well, I think also I've been involved, as you well know, with the NatWest Island Games for a number of years also. So I'm used to every couple of years having a Bermuda contingent and working with people, and the lead up to that. The CAC Games is a similar but much bigger event. Some very high level competition, terrific facilities, at least the sports facilities are. The accommodation is often a little bit different than what our athletes are used to, but I mean, it's top level competition and everybody gets on with it well. I think for me, it's the opportunity to pull together Bermuda's athletes for us to work together, and most importantly, to give them the best opportunity they can to be successful in a totally new environment.
Now, this CAC Games is unlike the games that we were at in Colombia, because we had to fly to different parts of Colombia to see different athletes. So this one will be a lot less stressful.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I remember. I mean, you and I had some good laughs doing all of that traveling. I think, yes, it's going to be less stressful. There's going to be more athletes than we had in Colombia, simply because you've got 2 teams involved. The rugby, for the rugby sevens, but equally the hockey is in Dominican Republic. So we're still working out how we're going to do that, because we flew to Bogota from Barranquilla in the last games to see the equestrian. Right. But you've got hockey and cycling in Dominican Republic in the second week. Right. And of course, there's still going to be athletes competing in El Salvador in that second week. So I'm working with Bramwin, who is hyper efficient. So we'll get that piece sorted out and decide how we're best going to support athletes at both places.
As you've indicated, you every few years you're leading a Bermuda contingent. But for you, what is it like leading a Bermuda contingent, whether it be the Commonwealth Games, the Pan Am Games, or the Island Games?
Yeah, I think, and the CAC Games shows it, NatWest Island Games show it. Our athletes, just simply because of where we are used to traveling. And in almost every situation, the management are used to getting athletes away, to fly in, to the arrangements. They're used to hiccups occurring and can deal with them. Everybody has a plan A, but you've got to have a plan B, C, D, and sometimes just do it on the fly. And I think that's the great thing, that our athletes just get on with it. And my role, as I see it, is to make this as successful and comfortable for athletes and management as I can. But I'm working with the management to help them however I can. And Bermuda's sports, I feel, are extremely well managed and very, very efficient.
Now, a lot of people don't understand the role of a chef de mission for a major festival. So in your mind and in the way you could explain it, how would you explain that role?
Well, the athletes are there to compete and to compete at the best they possibly can. The management of each sport is there to make sure that they can help them however they can, from a coaching, from a comfort point of view. And then my job is to assist all of those. As you know, there's a meeting every day. I've got to get that instruction back to the different managers. If there's a change of anything, you've got to get that done. There's athletes, particularly in these games, flying in and flying out, not in for the opening ceremony and staying there for 2 weeks. They're flying in, flying out. So there's room changes, there's equipment to come in and go out. So it's all of that logistics. So I see my job is to work with particularly the management to make sure that the athletes are getting what they need and that the management get all the information and help that they possibly can. Of course, one of the differences between, for example, the Island Games and something like CAC is that you're in Spanish-speaking countries. And we were very fortunate. I know in Barranquilla, we had a tremendous driver whose English was better than mine. So that was very helpful. So I think we're understanding that you're working in a slightly different situation where they all speak English, but it's obviously not their first language, and Spanish certainly isn't my first language. So it's helping people around a cultural difference and a language difference.
Plan A, B, C, and D, sometimes even E. Looking at we've all experienced where we need to make changes and kind of change the plans on the day, on the morning, and all of that. Julia, for you, I mean, those plans in Colombia in 2021 were changing by the hour sometimes, weren't they?
Yep. I mean, yeah, it was interesting hearing John say that. Yeah, I mean, but that is the chef's role, is to be able to handle any problems that arise like that and finding a solution. And there's always a solution to a problem. You just got to find it. And it may be going down A, B, C, D, and then, whatever. You just got to figure out that plan. But the key is not to panic, and not to show those around, either your athletes or your team managers, that there's this significant problem, and just be calm, and you can find that solution to whatever problem is presented in the situation.
Sure. Katura, many people would not know that you have been a judge at major festivals for diving for a number of years. But even in that, you still have to manage so much stuff going on around you. How does that experience, how do you think that experience will help you in crisis moments come Paris?
So I think the two are vastly different animals, mainly because I've never led a judging panel, judging team. I have refereed, of course I have, but like Julia and Ashley got to tag team, I have an incredible assistant ref who will always be like, maybe not that decision, let's talk about that. So I think, I mean, perhaps there's a little bit of crossover with that, but I will say that on the judging panel, there are 7 judges, sometimes 11 if we're talking about synchro diving. So if someone makes a mistake, there are a whole bunch of people who can pick up the slack. In this case, I cannot be the one who makes a mistake. Julia, Ashley, we cannot be the ones who make the mistake. We're the ones who fix the mistakes. So at the end of the day, we want these experiences for the athletes and their coaches to be the most seamless experiences of their lives, because it is their job to get personal best. They want to go to the Olympic Games, the Youth Commonwealth Games, the Pan Am Games, and the CAC Games, and pull out the performance of a lifetime. And I'm listening to Julia speak about Pan Ams, and I think it often sort of eludes people that the Pan Am Games is our last major qualifier for the Olympic Games. Yes. The regional qualifier for many sports. It's a direct qualifier. So she's got to make sure that some of these athletes will be peaking for the Pan Am Games in order to qualify for their Olympic dream to come true. So while there's crossover, I can say that there's a lot more pressure in this seat than there ever is in a judge's seat. Although I feel quite a bit more pressure as an official than I ever did as an athlete. No, I think while there's some crossover, I think this is a huge job, and I think there's very little room for error.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ashley, let me ask you, because I'm sorry, go ahead, Julia.
No, I was going to just reiterate that. Yeah, I mean, I think Pan Am Games this time, there's even more sports have qualification potential, either outright or points or whatever for athletes. So I think it's I see it as a little bit of a step up from maybe previous Pan Am Games, because I think every sport now, I think all of ours anyways, would have that Olympic impact. Yeah, so it'll be critical for so many of our athletes to do well there.
Agreed.
Ashley, I'm going to ask you, because I've watched each of you in your roles previously, and one of the things is the chef seems to never have time to themselves, especially to get rest. If you've got an athlete arriving 3 o'clock in the morning, 9 times out of 10, if you're not going to the airport to meet them, you're at the front desk to meet them when they come in. And how do you manage your time to ensure that you are capable to function on a daily basis, because you need to make sure that you take care of yourself as well?
Yeah, I think the first couple of days when we were down in Cali, me and Julia learned the hard way that we were going to have to take time for ourselves, because we were getting to that point where, yeah. And so I think one of the things that I did is I would look at the schedule of what the athletes needed, when they were going to be out of the hotel, when they were going to be in the hotel, where I needed to be, and carve out those. If I have 5 minutes here to sit by myself uninterrupted, I am going to find a place to sit by myself uninterrupted. 5 minutes. I won't be missed for 5 minutes, but as soon as those 5 minutes were done, I'm back visible for where people can see me. So yeah, just really and carving out those little times. I think that's something that you have to do in your workday as well. You know, it's a lot of the things that we're doing for Chef is definitely transferable from what your day-to-day life is. It's more high pressure, it's more high pace, but definitely transferable skills there for sure. Yeah, but yeah, you definitely need to take that time out for yourself, because as someone who went to the games as an athlete, I would have never guessed that there were all of these issues and errors and plan changes. And thank goodness for the chefs that were there to make those changes, to make those plans, to make sure that I never knew about any of it. So, you know, just giving that back to the athletes now.
Sure. Well, we're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more with 3 of the 4 chefs for Bermuda at major festivals this year and the Olympics. We'll be right back.
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, you know, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends. And that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
Putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
Here's one of our favorite feature brands, true veterans of the food awareness movement. Bob's Red Mill, the U.S. leading miller of organic whole grain foods. Only whole grains have the entire value developed during growth. And once you try them, you know that this is the way food was intended to be. Try Bob's Red Mill blanched almond, whole wheat pastry, and artisan bread flours, and 1-to-1 gluten-free baking flour, unsweetened shredded coconut, gluten-free homemade wonderful bread mix, and a variety of rolled oats. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Let me ask you, Couture, because all 3 of you, and even John Baird, have given back to not only your sport but the Bermuda Olympic Association in some way, shape, or form. How important is it that athletes do that? I mean, in Bermuda, we have a small pool. We don't have many athletes. We don't have a big population. But how important is it for athletes to give back so that someone who is coming behind them has a similar, if not a better opportunity than they had?
You know what? It's everything. It really is. It's funny because I absolutely love being on a panel or on a show with Ashley, because Ashley was a little bitty swimmer when I was a big old diver. And, being able to watch her grow in this administrative capacity is second to none. It's really just such a privilege. So I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of all of the athletes who give back when we're called upon. I can think of the fact that, I benefited from the expertise of Brian Wellman. I benefited from the expertise of Jenny Smatt, who were big athletes when I was a baby. And the importance of us, and both of them are still giving back to the BOA. So, the importance of understanding the sacrifices that have been made to ensure that our games experiences have been, as Ashley said, almost seamless a lot of the time, is it's second to none, really. It cannot be understated that an athlete's experience can really pour into the next athlete's experience. So as I said early in the show, Earl, it's so important, I think, to me as an Olympian to be able to sort of feather the cap or feather the beret in this case, for the athletes coming up. I want them to have an incredible experience. And my chef de mission at my Olympics was the incomparable Philippe Guichard. And he chefed the best athletes that Bermuda has ever turned out. So these are huge, huge shoes to fill. And I love that there are more athletes sort of stepping forward and taking on these roles. We've got athletes in the Athletes Commission. We've got athletes in almost all of our committees on the BOA. So, pouring into the athletes' experience from our own lived experience it's incomparable, really.
Mm. Julia, in talking with John Baird, one of the things he mentioned was that language barrier. We're going to Chile for the Pan Am Games. How has your experience been thus far and with the organizers? I know they send out press releases or information packages in both Spanish and English, but what has your experience been like thus far?
Well, it's interesting. We've just been assigned a liaison person, and her English is amazing. So I feel like right off the bat, like it's and she's been so helpful already, and so responsive. And we're still like 9 months out, 10 months out. So I have a very sort of warm and fuzzy feeling now about this. I don't think the language is going to be, obviously there's going to be some barriers with the language, but I think that there's so much English spoken, especially in big cities like Santiago. Yes. I think nothing, I don't think there'll be anything that'll arise that we can't overcome. And there's always Google Translate anyways. I certainly use that. Colombia. Get by.
Do you need me, Julia? I have high school Spanish.
Yeah, I know. She came to
she saved us in Colombia a couple of times.
She sure did. And I don't know if your viewers know, but Katura is bilingual for sure and can speak French fluently. So that'll be a huge advantage.
Yes.
Sometimes you get into detailed situations in a sport, and maybe then the language does become a barrier, with technical terms and things like that. So I think for Katura, having the French in Paris is going to be amazing. For us in Chile, we probably even have people on our team who can speak Spanish. So I feel like we're going to be well covered. In Chile.
Okay. And Ashley, for you, every day there's developments coming out of Trinidad about the youth games there. How confident are you that these particular youth games will be just as good, if not better, than the ones we were at in 2021.
Luckily, I don't have to deal with a language barrier.
Don't you? Don't you?
Have some slang. Gary, don't call me, Gary. Don't call me.
After I said it, I take it back.
I hope you speak Carnival.
Yeah.
But I think these games are going to be a little bit smaller. There's less sports going. They've really narrowed down the amount of people that they're going to allow to compete. So I think it's going to be a smaller games, but I think it's going to be a highly competitive games because they're definitely picking like the highest caliber of this age group is what they're trying to get to down in Trinidad. So I mean, the conversations and the communication started off quite slow, but it has really, really ramped up in the last couple of weeks. The documents that we've gotten have been really thorough. And like I 3 weeks ago, I where are we going to be in Trinidad? What sports is it? But today I was reading through documents with Bronwyn, and like I feel as though they've been really, really organized. It was just slow coming out. So I have hope. I should probably get Duolingo though to learn some Trinidadian slang, maybe.
All you need is roti and doubles. That's all you need in your life.
I think probably the biggest challenge for all of us will be, Earl, is the logistics. And it's interesting hearing, the Veracruz experience with all the satellite places that venues are at. I think that now is that's the way these games are run. I think I was looking at Pan Am Games, and there's some significant distances between some of our event locations. Ashley's, youth come with their different islands, they're going to take ferries. So
that is one thing that's going to be a huge logistical.
And we're going to have the same problem. We've got, a couple 100 kilometers, similar to Cali, remember? We were facing that. So in a way, that's almost like the biggest, probably going to be one of the more significant challenges. I mean, it'll be similar in Paris because it's a huge city and it's a huge games. So, getting anywhere will be a challenge.
And the traffic situation and getting people on time to where they are. And like you said, the beach volleyball is taking place right outside of the Eiffel Tower. So, getting people to the center for things, you're right. The logistics is going to be the biggest piece for all of us.
I mean, we looked at when we were in Peru. The sailing was 3.5 hours to 4 hours drive.
That's right.
And we were 2 hours away from Chile by the time we finished that drive. To turn around, go out on the water all day, and then come back for that drive. For people that live there, that probably doesn't seem like a lot, but for us, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, that takes a lot out of you.
But you know what, Earl, that's where we come in, right? Because there are such things as provisions to be made for those athletes who are out there. When we think about commuting, that was when, remember, Donna and I had to make that decision that we were staying in Jalapa. We were staying in that village, even though the hotel, even though they hadn't assigned it. And that's just in the best interest of the athletes. And I'm confident that each one of us who has taken on this task will always work in the best interest of the athletes. So it's never a 3-hour drive that is in the best interest of an athlete. So we endeavor to make that as seamless as possible.
Right. Now, it's important, because a lot of people don't realize this. It's important that the chefs go to, quote unquote, a few meetings to see just how those logistics will work out, to ensure that 3-hour drive doesn't have to happen for their athlete when they're competing. but would you say it's vital that you attend those meetings because you get to be on the ground, you get to see what's actually available to you, and then make that decision that maybe I need to get my athletes housing closer to the venue. And
That's imperative. It's
Yes.
imperative. It's,
Someone definitely needs to be there.
and these chef meetings are, I mean, they're mandatory for a reason. And
Right.
each team, especially when you're dealing with these big regional games and then the Olympic Games as more countries, each team has its intricacies of what it is that they need. So, you know, it's really important, of course, that we get feet on the ground.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we did junior Pan Am, that was during the COVID. They didn't have a chef, an on-site chef meeting.
Right.
And honestly, that was such a major factor when we then did go down, because we didn't know any of this, you know, what can be written and what is actual can be quite different.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I'm going to the chef meeting in April in Chile, and I'm really looking forward to it, because I think it's like imperative to see where everything is of the sports that we think we will have there, and what those logistics will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take our final commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more. There's 3 of our 4 chef initiations for major festivals for the Bermuda Olympic Association. We'll be right back.
It seems everyone knows someone who's lactose intolerant or just avoiding dairy products. And fortunately, there's a growing array of delicious and nutritious alternatives. Pacific Natural Foods have been doing things their own way simply and sustainably for over a quarter century, making non-dairy beverages with the finest possible ingredients right down to the packaging. Try Pacific Natural Original and Vanilla Hemp Milk and Almond Original Plant-Based Beverage, all sweetened or unsweetened, and low-sodium organic vegetable or chicken broth. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, you know, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends, and that's what I'm thankful for.
It's putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
Welcome back. Well, all 3 of you are competitors in your own right. I mean, you've all competed in your various sports. So give me a sense of what it was like when you were competing, with the ambitions of getting to the highest possible event of you know, Ashley, probably you had dreams of going to the Olympics. Victoria, you made it to the Olympics. Julia, you would have had other, you know, you would have had goals set for yourself. So as a sense of what you were striving for when you were an athlete, and some of you still are competing, right, Julia?
Sort of.
So I'll actually start with you, Ashley. What was that like for you?
I think that I had such a huge advantage over the other people that I was training with when I was in university. I would say that that's like probably the highest level that I would have trained at was when my 4 years in university. And I had such an advantage because I had this this country pride, and I had this greater sense of purpose for what I was doing than a lot of them. Like, nobody wants to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go to practice. I still don't want to wake up and go and coach these kids at that time in the morning. but when I vividly remember there was this one time when I woke up and it was -20. I'm checking my emails and I'm like, is practice canceled? It wasn't. So I'm basically crying, walking down to practice. And when I got there, I was like, okay, like, yeah, this is going to be horrible, but there's a reason why I'm here right now. And there's a reason why I get up almost every day. And then the reason why I'm putting this effort into it. And it's to be the best that I can. And yes, I did have Olympic dreams, and there's so many things that go into that. There's injuries and everything. But I think that being a part of Bermuda and the athletics in Bermuda was such an advantage for me, and something that I'm so grateful for now as an adult. And I think that's one of the reasons why I am giving back, because I just want other people to have that same opportunity that was afforded to me. Like, there's so many things that I've gotten to do in my life because of swimming and because of Bermuda sports that so many people don't get to experience.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Julia, for you, competing, what would you consider?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I went to 2 Commonwealth Games and a Pan Am Games for cycling. I was a little older when I started this adventure, I guess I'd call it, but I harbored dreams of the Olympics as well. But I think the important thing was that we were leading the way in terms of female representation in our particular sport and cycling. And now, as I've obviously finished that, I'm giving back, and my experiences, I think, from that, from myself competing, and I'm now involved on the admin side of the BOA, and doing the chef. I think I bring a unique perspective, and I understand what it takes, for athletes to really succeed and be given everything that they need to be the very best. And now we've got, an Olympic gold medalist. So these investments in athletes and what that takes, it takes time to develop all these things. So yeah, I think for me, it was, I guess, in a way, paving the way for the female representation. I mean, Couture was similar as well with, what she achieved. And it's just important because then you get the next crop of athletes coming through, and now we've got young girls that are competing in cycling and in other sports as well. So yeah, I just feel that those experiences really sort of shape how I'm involved in what I do and in the Bermuda Olympic Association.
Couture, not many people get to live their dream. I mean, as we know, not every athlete makes it to the pinnacle, especially when it comes to the Olympics. You got that opportunity. So give us a sense of what that whole leading up, during, after, what was that like for you?
You know what, Earl, it's pretty emotional for me because it was an opportunity, but it's taken me a long time to realize that it was an earned opportunity. As Ashley said, I mean, and anybody who knows me knows I am not a morning person. Oh goodness, I'm barely functional before 11 a.m. So those morning practices, they were tough, and they were always tough. I didn't even know 5 o'clock had an AM before I got to university. So still not sure that I agree with that. But those were the types of things that had to be done as as many know, I grew up in Toronto. I grew up away from my family. My mother made an 18-year sacrifice to ensure that I was in a country with a program, with a facility that bred and raised a talent that, I mean, no Bermudian has really been able to have that opportunity that I had to grow up and be coached by the world's best in diving. And I mean, you know that she's a softball player, so you know it was such a heartbreaking experience for her, I'm sure, to have bought me a brand new leather glove and throw the ball at me and just have it hit me in the face. So she had to figure out how she was going to raise an athletic kid, and luckily, you know, we found diving. We found diving through gymnastics, and there was a lot of family sacrifice. Additionally, then it went into the college choices. I chose the #1 swimming and diving program in the nation at the time. Texas, the University of Texas was #1. They had the Olympic gold medalist in diving and platform, Laura Wilkinson, was there. And I wanted to dive with the #1 coach in the nation because I knew I wanted the Olympics. And I've wanted the Olympics since I was a 5-year-old little girl. But I say all that to say that it had to be a perfect storm. It wasn't just me. It was a million coaches, parental and familial support, the support of 3 countries, not just one. Bermuda, my goodness, just went to bat. You know, I think, like Ashley, you know, the privilege to be from a place like Bermuda where people are so supportive and so welcoming and just so proud. You know, we talk about sometimes we lack national pride, and that's just really not my experience. You know, when we walk into these arenas with Bermuda on our backs, it feels like walking in with any country, any USA or Great Britain. We are proud Bermudians. We will always be proud Bermudians. And the ability and the privilege to fly that flag in a Pan Am Games, a Commonwealth Games, a Youth Games, and an Olympic Games, it's not a privilege that everybody gets. So I don't think any of us has taken that lightly. And yes, the Olympics is the pinnacle. It absolutely is. And 10,000 athletes each quadrennial get it. But it's not a snap decision. It's not an overnight sensation. It happens over decades and decades of work, decades and decades of disappointment. And sometimes all your ducks go in a row and you get to walk into that stadium and, you know, hear that applause for your country. And it's second to none.
Sure. Well, we're going to end with this question, this question for each and every one of you, and not to preempt what you will actually say to the athletes as the chef. But this question here, I think, is vital. Julia, what can the Pan American Games athletes expect from Julia Hawley, the chef commission?
They can expect that I will be there for them 110%, every day, every minute, every hour, doing what it takes to make their experience the very best and get the absolute best performance for them on their day in their event.
And for Ashley Yearwood, what can our Commonwealth Youth Games athletes expect?
They can expect excellence from me and themselves.
Nice.
That's what I'm going to say.
And Ms. Katora Horton, Parent Chief, our Olympic Games athletes, what can they expect from you?
Oh, that is so tough.
Right?
No, I'm going to tell you.
Let me just say this. Hold on one second. Not what you demand of them. What
No, that's not that. No, because the reason it's tough for me is that we've said this already, the Olympic is the pinnacle. They are going to come in quintessential professionals. So they can expect that I will cog their wheel. You know, they're already on a rolling train. They will have qualified for the Olympic Games. They will be ready. I think more than any other games. They are at the height of their athletic career. So what they can get from me is support, cheerleading, and like they will get from all of these other ladies, they're going to get an excellent standard in logistics. So they don't have to worry about anything except making a final, an Olympic final, getting on an Olympic podium, getting an Olympic personal best, and making sure that their Olympic experience is the thing that they've been dreaming of since they were 5 years old. So I hope that we're all able to give them that, but especially for me as an Olympian who had, as I said, an incredible experience under my own chef de mission, Philippe Guichard. I hope that I can be that for these athletes. And also, I'm a pretty great cheerleader. I'm just saying. And
More than great.
in French is going to come in very handy in crafting French cheers for them.
Well, let me just say again, ladies, congratulations on being selected as chef commissions for Bermuda. I know each and every one of you personally, and I know you do. You hold yourselves in high esteem, and I know the job you will do for our athletes will be first class. And any support we can give you, we're right here. We're just a text away. And I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight. I believe that the athletes that are watching, the coaches, the parents, and Bermuda in general will now feel a lot more comfortable knowing that we have you ladies as well as Joan Baird in charge to ensure that they get the best experience at these festivals they can ever get going forward. So thank you very much.
Earl.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you,
And thank
Earl.
you to the media. You guys are
so
great.
much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye. Bye.